Roses are red. Seniors are dying. And it's mostly because Andrew Cuomo is lying. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ruthless.
Democrats are set to take control of the U.S. Senate, House, and the White House.
This will go down as one of the most progressive administrations in American history.
God willing, everything is on the table.
You now can pass things without a filibuster threat.
That's right.
Oh, you'll regret this, and you may regret it a lot sooner than you think.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Well, the variety program with a beautiful little post-Valentine's sonnet.
Yeah, a couple days since Valentine's Day, but it's still gold. Had to get out there, especially after that train wreck of a press conference that Cuomo had yesterday. Goodness gracious.
I want to get more into that. We don't have the space today because you got an important interview, which we'll talk about. Mm-hmm. But we need to do more of a deep dive on just what a liar Cuomo is. Yeah. I mean, just to give folks like a taste of the kind of stuff that he was saying in that press conference yesterday, Cuomo said that COVID-19 got into New York's nursing homes because of the staff and visitors, not because of patients coming from hospitals due to his March 25th order. The one where he said if a senior has COVID, they got to get sent to one of the nursing homes. He was like, yeah, that's not how COVID got in. So, it's makes sense. It's just unbelievable. It's so infuriating. And I want to bring guests on. Like, we need to cover this in a very big way because that the media already today has begun making excuses for it. But we've got a big program.
Yes, we do. It's gonna be an awesome variety program today, folks.
Your first interview, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is. It's Claudia Tenney, who is just finally been recognized as the winner in her House race. That took a while to finalize it, but one of the first Minions ever elected to Congress. It's an exciting moment.
It is an exciting moment, and I'm excited just for the interview, frankly. I want to hear Smug live on this sucker.
Right. And it's going to be a good one. What else do we have on the program today?
So a lot of really important stuff. One thing that we need to hit is the special episode on Friday. I think we're the first program, variety or otherwise, that has taken two scalps in one episode.
That's something.
We took the Lincoln P. First of all, hats off for the shanty, fellas.
Yeah.
Good shanty.
Hands all around.
Hats off for the shanty. So the Lincoln P goes down within within hours of that going live. Schmidt resigns the board at Lincoln P. And all hell breaks loose. More people start jumping off. Now they can't even process donations. Like, it's over. And I think the Ruthless Variety program deserves a tip of the cap.
Right. We told you people. That's a constant theme. We told you people this would happen. We gave you the heads up. So all our listeners, you can tell your friends you knew first.
And then the second piece of this is Ducklow, which, we raised the story. Nobody was talking about it. Old Ducklow had a problem, if you recall, with a Politico reporter and his girlfriend, an Axios reporter. We covered it. And, within short order, old Ducklow is a former employee of the White House.
Well, the thing that was really interesting there, Holmes, and we mentioned this on the podcast, was, they initially gave him a 1-week suspension, which is like hilarious when you think of the content of what he said, to that Politico reporter. And I think what we had said on the pod was basically like, if this was a Republican, they would be gone. It'd be a 10-day story, first of all, if they didn't leave.
Yep.
It'd be a full court press from everybody in the media to get this person fired. And hey, look, it happened.
It happened. I don't know much about it other than what we reported, but the point is that we throw an awfully big wrench here in the Ruthless Variety program.
Which is all the more reason why we got to stay on this Cuomo thing.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. If that could be one of the best things we could do is if somehow we could force Cuomo out of office, That would quite literally be saving lives.
It could. It honestly could. I mean, I don't know how none of us know how COVID ultimately ends, but this cat I know is whatever you can do to mismanage your situation.
Yeah, seriously.
Governor Cuomo has figured out that way. So, all right. That's the top of the show. Here is the meat of the program, as we say. This morning, Axios previewed that they did an interview. The venerable Mike Allen, who I like and appreciate, in many ways has done incredible things for sort of journalism writ large over the years, invented Playbook, for example. Is at Axios. He's kind of their senior guy, and he interviewed Kamala Harris.
Yep. And what happened there?
So I see this tweet this morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that he interviewed the vice president. That's interesting. And I click on it and I watch this video just aghast. It is Kamala Harris who starts with the talking point that, we showed up and there was no plan for coronavirus. There was no plan for the vaccines. There was no distribution of the vaccines. We're starting from ground zero. Now, what I'd like to do is give you a absolute quote on what it is that she said. I'm giving you the gist of what she said. I'd like to give you the absolute quote, but Axios deleted the video.
Really? Do tell.
They deleted the video. So I'm watching this thing, and then I get to the point where she says, no plan, no vaccines. There was no stockpile of vaccines. And Mike is like, stockpile? Like what we would all think, a stockpile. What do you mean? You expected a stockpile of vaccine that was literally just invented like 3 weeks before you showed up? And she was like, yeah, no stockpile. And she kind of blew right through it, which was like, you were watching her and her eyes. And I was like, how the fuck does this woman not have 2 or 3 talking points on this issue? She literally has no idea what she's talking about. She is the second most powerful person on the planet, and nobody is giving her a talking point on coronavirus.
Didn't update them. They didn't update the talking points because if you remember, like a day or two after Biden became president, this was the first on background dig at the Trump administration that the Biden folks had, which was
we covered it.
Like that they came into the West Wing and it was they opened the door that says coronavirus plan and there's tumbleweed coming out and there's nothing there. What are we going to do? Meanwhile, we're vaccinating 1 million people a day.
Yeah.
And no one bothered to update Kamala Harris's talking points over the last 3 weeks.
So there was 1 million people who were vaccinated on Inauguration Day, right? Mm-hmm. And their whole plan, remember the Biden plan was we want 100 million people vaccinated in the first 100 days. And in the first 2 days that he was sworn in, they had already vaccinated 2.5 million people, right? And that was all under the Trump plan that had been going at that point for like 4 weeks. These people tried to convince us. Remember, they put out that big process story in CNN about how there was no plan. And immediately the media, they're very reluctant to admit this, but our boy, Dan Diamond, remember we reported on the program, talked about how this is all nonsense. Like the plan has been in place. It's already going. We've already got to a point where they're well on their way to 100 million without any sort of work by them.
I mean, that's the thing is it's completely a case of they did not update the talking points. They refused to acknowledge how much work, the groundwork for everything had been, laid out for them. And in every facet, their plan is essentially adopting what Trump already handed off to them. Whether it's the immunizations which are happening, which, was it Project Lightspeed? I forget
Warp Speed.
Project Warp Speed.
I love you can never get that one right.
I can never get that one right. But to get a vaccine done so quickly.
Multiple vaccines. Multiple.
And then hand it off to the next team, and for them to still have the same talkers of like, nothing's been done on COVID, when Fauci straight up refutes it. He was like, no, they're not starting.
That's the thing. I think even more egregious than her just sort of stumbling around like an idiot and saying things that are just obviously untrue. We've come to appreciate that about Democrats. That happens all the time. She's the vice president 3 weeks into her tenure. Did she just miss this uproar?
Right.
We litigated it in a very loud way about how this wasn't true. Somehow she didn't get the talking points. Incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is incredible. There's also a thing I've noticed in some of the coverage of their 100 million vaccinations talking point is that depending on who they're talking to, the goalposts shift a little bit. It's 100 million people vaccinated, or it's 100 million shots of the vaccine.
Oh yeah, right.
See what I'm saying? And
yes.
As we know, this is a 2-stage vaccination.
Yes.
So do they actually mean 100 million people vaccinated, or do they mean 50 million people vaccinated, but they got 2 shots?
That's right.
And also, you have to point out, so the Biden administration did make a radical change in the COVID plan, where, like you said, it's 2 doses to get the vaccination. The Biden team said, you know what, we're not going to hold that second dose for folks who've gotten the first one. They said, as soon as we have any in hand, just get them out there, distribute them immediately. So there could be people who are stuck without a second dose. Like, we have not yet seen how that ends up.
They hope to backfill it, in other words, with orders down the road, which, to be honest with you, if you're trusting U.S. manufacturing, I'll put my money there all day. Like, yeah. I feel like
that's the one upside to that for sure.
I feel like American pharmaceutical manufacturing compared to the rest of the world is so much better. Like, if our bet here to get people vaccinated is that America will come through, I'll throw my money in on that bet every time. What the difference is that these guys don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. Like, they're literally, they have a vice president of the United States that went out there with a talking point that had been set on fire 3 weeks ago. And she's looking at Mike with a big smile on her face as though this is just, yeah, this is what happened. This is what happened. And like, anybody in the world buys that bullshit. It's incredible to me.
Is it any wonder Kamala had to drop out before Iowa? Like, has zero clue what she's doing.
There is something to be said about how the Democrats assume the media is going to be compliant in their in their work to basically move goalposts and set expectations ridiculously low for themselves to accomplish goals. And then when they accomplish them, we're all supposed to cheer and applaud. We're seeing the exact same thing, mind you, with schools. Yep. Because if you recall, Jen Psaki from the podium said that the goal was, half the schools open within whatever it was. I think it's a couple of months or whatever. But it's not really half the schools open. It's half the schools open to in-person learning at least one day a week.
Yeah,
seriously. Talk about an asterisk on that one.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, this school's issue is huge. Look, folks, I mean, if you listen to this podcast, we have talked about a lot of stuff that's been very difficult, impeachment, we're past it. The one thing every Republican should be talking about is reopening schools
nonstop. It's the winning issue.
This is the winning issue in American politics. I don't care if you are hair on fire socialist, if you have kids, you care about this issue.
Yep.
And so we should be beating that drum all day, every day. And one thing I wanted to highlight here, there was this really great Twitter thread by Jim Garrity at National Review. And he did this really, I think, effective way of sort of burying the lead in his article, where he basically talks about Newton, Massachusetts, back in July of 2020. The school district was, struggling with reopening, as school districts across the country had been struggling with this very issue. And the mayor reached out to Harvard, to a professor of medicine, chief of infectious disease, asking her to weigh in. The policy was basically, 6 feet of separation in classrooms. Is that really necessary? Or can we go with 3 feet? Because obviously, these are young immune systems. These are healthy kids. By and large, do we actually need the 6 feet of separation to get schools back to in-person learning? The reply from that Harvard chief of infectious disease was pretty straightforward here. It is safe and practical to be at 3 feet. And this is a direct quote. Very viable for the middle, high schools, and even late grade schools, and would improve the feasibility. I suspect you may want to be at 6 feet for some of the very young kids who can't mask. But again, kids can mask. We can be responsible about this. We can reopen schools. Do you know who that Harvard professor was?
Who?
Rochelle Walensky, who is now the director of the
Come
CDC.
on.
Amazing. Amazing.
Stunning. This is the same woman who now says on Fox News Sunday, just last Sunday, said that, quote, one of the things that's really been emphasized in school reopening is how unsafe some of our school ventilations are. She continues, that's a problem for other respiratory viruses, for children with asthma, for exposure to mold. There's a lot of work we need to do in order to get our schools to a safer environment. Bullshit.
But, she's done an evolution on this backwards.
There you go.
Backwards. I mean, this is the guidance that she initially gave were basically in line with Dr. Fauci, which was schools are ready to be open. They have had low transmission rates as long as we've been tracking them. Kids are not vulnerable to the disease. We have seen very few teachers infected. States are prioritizing teacher vaccinations. Like we're going to have to open these schools. The Biden administration sort of like smacked back on that, right? And she says then, there was an article that was out today that actually just kind of blew my mind in a lot of ways about how they took it back to the drawing board and took in the, quote, understanding of lived experiences, challenges, and perspective of teachers, school staff, parents, and students. We have conducted an in-depth review of available science and evidence to guide our recommendations, and we've also engaged with many education, public health partners, and firsthand from parents and teachers directly about their concerns. These sessions were so informative and direct that changes to our guidance were made as a result of them. So in other words, the listen to the science folks that were all they could talk about for the last year is listen to Fauci, listen to the science. As soon as the science butts up against teachers' unions, all of a sudden we need lived experiences.
Yeah. Suddenly science doesn't guide our decision making. We got to listen to the lived experience of people. And mind you, all of these same folks were saying that Donald Trump isn't trusting the science. He's going to get people killed by not following the science. Now we're not following the science. We're not. And the other thing about this, Holmes, is it's not just, coming from the CDC. The media is complicit in this now as well. This whole lived experience bullshit where they're saying, well, clearly what the real problem is that we're not prioritizing teachers. Which isn't true. Of course, that's not true. Okay. Because in Fairfax County here in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., in Northern Virginia, for our listeners, Fairfax County, very large, wealthy county with a lot of resources in Northern Virginia, prioritize vaccinating teachers.
Yep.
You want to know what happened?
Nothing.
Yeah. The school board said, you know what? Still can't commit to opening in the fall. The fall. Can't open in the fall. We vaccinate the teachers, put them in the front of the line ahead of old people, vaccinate those teachers, and then the teachers turn around and say, you know what? Still can't do it.
But like, if you take a step back here, right? If you just from the education component, we have figured out how to take care of healthcare workers on the front lines, right? We figured out how to vaccinate politicians who are making decisions. We've figured out somehow to run the goddamn National Football League, right? The NBA, the NCAA. We're gonna have a turn. Every sports are fine, right? But still, 1 year into this, we cannot figure out a way to get our kids into classrooms. That's willful.
I mean, to me, this is a very black and white, straight up, easy to understand issue. You are either on the side of the medical community and scientists who say it is safe to reopen schools, or you're on the side of the teachers unions who say keep schools closed. That's all it is.
That's it.
Well, and let's give them the benefit of the doubt, even though at this point they clearly don't deserve it. But let's say that there are teachers who are older and have compromised immune systems. Oh, okay, fine. It's not safe for maybe you to return to the classroom. But what's better? All of your kids in the classroom and you Zoom in, you Skype in, or we all stay home forever? Is that really the answer? Mm-hmm. No, of course not. Let's use our fucking brains here.
Totally. And you know what the point it comes back to is, I remember that Loudoun County guy that went viral on Fox, who was standing in the middle of his school board saying, figure it out. Remember this guy? Just figure it out. It resonated so deeply with me because I can what he's saying is like, I know it's tough, right? I know that what you're dealing with is not ideal. What we're all dealing with is not ideal. You've been elected to put in a position. You are now working in a position that has grave consequences for the next generation in this country. Figure it out.
It's I'm telling you, like, we're all in agreement. This is the number one issue. Every single Republican should be talking about this. It's a winning issue. Like Duncan Holmes, both of you are blessed to have kids and families of your own. Every single parent I have spoken to, this is number one priority for them. And nothing else comes close. Number one is they want schools reopened.
It is. And you know, we've talked about this for a long time, and we've had guests like Pete Snyder in to talk about it, but we're going to continue to talk about it because it's not going anywhere. And honestly, you get the impression from some of these school boards and teachers unions that as long as the virus exists on this planet, that they would love to collect your tax dollars, pay out their pensions, figure out how to not have school. But I don't believe that that's where teachers are. You know, if you talk to actual teachers, they understand that the problem they have here, like they want to get back and they actually want to teach their kids. And they chose this life. They chose to interact with children because that's what they love to do. And we've got these unions standing in the way. So I look, we're going to keep on pounding this. You're probably going to get a daily dose of it.
Good. I look forward to it. If anybody starts a super PAC to, I don't know, recall these school board officials who refuse to open schools, I will donate. I will definitely donate. I mean, this is not just about, you know, the students and the families. This is about our economy. Like, if we can't have kids in school, we truly can't go back to an open economy. Yeah. We have to solve this problem. Republican, if you are a Republican leader in this country with a platform, talk about this issue, please.
That's right. All right. So we cannot.
We have to have the game, right?
Yeah. And we cannot let a Tuesday go by without me defending my newfound crown with Anna Navarro.
Wow. I'm still bitter about this one.
Moderate Jeff. Let's cue the music. It's just music to my ears. I love every minute of it. I am the champion, and Navarro is the champion.
So just a reminder to our listeners, this is a King of the Hill style format in which, right now Holmes is the champion with Anna Navarro. He gets his 3 tweets that he picks from the last week, and Smug, who was our previous champion, now gets a selection of a challenger in 3 tweets. Those 3 tweets will be read to me, the judge and jury, and I decide who the winner is.
Now, and also to clarify, there's like a cool off phase.
Yes.
You know, if so, I had previously championed Jen Rubin and given her, in my opinion, completely unjust loss. There's at least a 1 week, hiatus that Jen has to take, which is shocker because she drops those takes daily, folks.
Frazier beat Ali.
That's exactly it, man. That's exactly it.
So like she's definitely the Ali.
And it hurts because she's dropped so many crazy takes.
But the way that it works, the way that it works, it is a shame, that she is not eligible. But you don't get another shot at the title immediately.
Yeah, it's fair. I agree. It's completely fair. I have to say that, it keeps the game interesting too, because else is just like Ruben's back, folks. Like
she'd be on it every week.
Yeah, she's a one-woman dynasty, like of terrible takes. But I have a pick. Should I reveal who I'm rolling with?
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, the challenger I bring to the arena this week, Matthew Dowd.
Oh,
folks, you may know him. He is, would I say, a former Republican strategist?
Yeah, he was a
Bush. Aide?
He was a Bush campaign senior advisor, turned ABC news analyst. This guy.
He was also on the Schwarzenegger governor campaign or team.
Yeah,
right?
he sure was.
Many people saying. Many things happened there. You can Google it, folks.
Many people
Google
were saying
Matthew Dowd Schwarzenegger because I'm not going to get onto it. I'm not talking about it on this show. But he is who I am bringing on. He has a lot of terrible takes, folks. He's one of these, never Trump, now never Republican, proud independent, types. You know the type, folks. So
I'm just happy you could access it.
Bad takes
because frankly, he banned me.
Well, that's the thing is I'm blocked. I'm getting this from behind enemy lines. We've got the incognito window open so I can actually see his tweets.
Incredible.
What a perfect indictment of who this guy is the fact that he is the ABC News chief political analyst. He's blocked me.
See, that's the thing is like if he blocked me, that's understandable. All right. There's a significant population that's blocked me on Twitter. But if he's blocked Holmes, like, wow. That's surprising.
Oh, God. Okay.
But he's got some takes, and I brought him. He had some firepower the past week. That's who I'm rolling with.
So, who starts, Dunks?
It's
so
champion.
You have
champion drops first. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to drop first. You have to go first in the first round and first in the third round.
Okay, so I'm going to go with a Valentine's Day special. Ana Navarro, champion. Bummed Senate invertebrates voted to acquit Trump. Remember, he's exiled in Mar-a-Lago, golfing, watching TV, and unable to tweet. And his only president in history with shame of 2 impeachments. And his legal troubles are galore. And Joe Biden is president. And it's Valentine's Day.
And that's okay, sure. That's the tweet that sucks in general. It's a bad tweet. It's a bad tweet, but it's not like
that's not a bad.
I got a lot of confidence in Dowd now. Let's go, Dowd.
So the judge needs a clarification here. Mar-a-Lago? What's that?
Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah,
Mar-a-Lago.
What she's saying in it's like not here, right? Mar-a-Lago. He's away from here. Away from DC. Mar-a-Lago.
Huh.
So she invented, let's talk about this. She invented a term, right? Makes reference to the fact that the president can't communicate. She says that he has got a lot of legal troubles. And then to make people feel better, also, Joe Biden is president and it's Valentine's Day. So all of these things are supposed to make you feel better about Trump being acquitted in his impeachment trial.
But here's the thing. Mar-a-Lago sounds great. He's golfing. He's watching TV. He's probably
honestly, it sounds like his life rules.
and all you can do is tweet about him.
So you're picking it up. See, Duncan. See, this is why you got to know the judge and the juror, because he's picking up what I'm laying.
I think it's just weak. Can I drop?
You drop it. Yeah.
This is Matthew Dowd on February 12th. 8:45 a.m. This guy's first cup of coffee, and then he's dropping this. Matthew Dowd says, in my view, people like Nikki Haley are much worse than former President Trump. She knew who he was and still enabled him. She could have done something and chose not to out of political expediency. The hypocrisy of Haley knows no bounds. Folks, we told you this is what would happen. We told you this is what would happen. They'd say, oh my God, now this person's worse than Trump. That's exactly what they're doing. And of all people to say like, oh, Nikki Haley, she's more dangerous than Trump.
This is
that's a take
that I made, if you recall, 2 weeks back with Max Boot and his take on Rob Portman.
Yeah, I mean that's a take. It's the same vein, man.
Well, I watched how the judge and jury came down on that.
Well, I mean that was against a Jen Rubin take. That wasn't that weak sauce Anna Navarro. This is kind of harebrained, man.
I'm
saying Nikki Haley. Bottom line, Dowd is claiming Nikki Haley's more dangerous than Trump. I mean, holy moly.
So
That's
I've rendered my decision. So the Anna Navarro take it's fucking sad. Like that's if I had to describe it, it's Valentine's Day and all you can do is be troll tweeting the president who's in the sunshine golfing and watching television. That's fucking sad.
Yeah, not
like,
a great Valentine's Day. I
think
that's the takeaway from that. That's accurate.
it's more pathetic than it is good. Smug's tweet really rings true to me because this is one of my favorite sort of mask off moments for the media writ large, which is that whether it was Mitt Romney or John McCain or Donald Trump, the media always says the next Republican is worse than the previous Republican.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's their game plan.
And for that masked off take, that's a victory for Smug.
Let's go.
Unbelievable.
Round one to the challenger.
He reversed himself on well set precedent. Well set precedent.
No, look, that tweet, this one that Smug did was concentrated, distilled in the crucible of takes, the purest form of anti-Republican hate that the media regularly traffics in.
There it is.
This is why we create. This is why we created this program.
Sort of like Max Boot and Rob Portman.
I think we need to go back.
If
to
you
the
ask
tape.
me, Judge, he's attacking your decision making.
I'm just questioning. What I'm trying to do,
just asking questions.
What I'm trying to do is establish, like you do with an umpire, you're trying to establish the strike zone here.
I mean, stop trying to work the ref. The man has issued his judgment. Word is law.
It will be in the record, and you are overruled, sir.
There we go.
One more outburst, and I'm going to find you in contempt of this court.
All right, Smug, you're up next.
All right, here. This is another great Matthew Dowd take. Quote, because he wrote an entire article. This is nuts, folks. Quote, this is February 9th, 7:36 a.m. First thing in the morning, this guy's dropping takes.
First, he's up and at
it. He's going. We can only solve our long history of racism if white people like myself stand at the front of the effort, arm in arm with our brothers, sisters of color, and speak the truth. Sometimes that might even be speaking first in message to our white sisters and brothers. Like my favorite part is his take is to erase racism, we need to put white people at the front of the line. Black folks get back.
Hold on.
What a take. That's word for word, dude. He really said this and thought it's a great take.
I love tweets like this because, I've said this previously in other episodes of the podcast, but there's nothing a rich white liberal loves more than jumping to the front of the parade of black people and taking credit for everything.
Accurate. So accurate.
Shit.
He's like, you know what? I'm going to lead the civil rights movement. Black folks, get behind me. I got this one.
Oh, God.
Dowd, man. He really brought it the past week. The guy's brain is lost.
I got to bring my best one here because I'm afraid I'm going to get sweeped. Swept. Okay. The Hill tweets out an article entitled Former First Lady Launches Office of Melania Trump. And Navarro, without irony, who is all she tweets? Who?
Oh, that's a gimme. I got this.
Wait, hold on. Just Holmes, I'm gonna need that setup again. I'm sorry. I need to give you a shot here because Smug gave you a really strong competition here. I'm gonna need you to sell that even more for me.
Yeah. So what I've got here, and granted, what I'm working with is 7 straight days. Only Jen Rubin can give you top 10, 7 straight days. 7 straight days. Most of this is impeachment jabber, right? What she's talking about just in terms of like, hey, this fucking Democrat is awesome. This Republican sucks. Yada, yada, yada. You hear it endlessly, basically across the entire media. What she's trying to do here, Duncan, is erase Melania Trump and pretend as though Melania Trump is someone you don't need to think of as even a former first lady or even a public figure at all. This announcement is about the former first lady setting up her office. She says, who?
You know what? It's just more women supporting women. Am I right?
If I can interject, I'm going to just say, I know I have such a fire Matthew Dowd take, and I would have won this round. I'm gonna like Babe Ruth point. I'm taking a knee. Let's go to round 3. I'm taking a knee. Give him the point.
You're gonna give it. You're gonna give it.
Give
away?
him the point. Yes, I've got a fire Dowd take coming up. I want folks to hear it. That's why we have to go to round 3. Let him have it. Let him have the point. I'll spot him a point.
Okay. Smug is conceding. He's literally going to concede.
Let him have
That's strong.
I'm genuinely nervous. I'm genuinely nervous.
Round 3. Can I drop the take?
All right. Here, why don't we do this?
Holmes has to go first in round 3.
No.
Oh, yeah. Holmes has to go first. This is even more exciting now.
No. Because you've spotted me the take, I just want to hear it. If it is as good as you make it sound, I won't even compete against it.
Oh, that's a good deal. Judge, is that allowable? Are we going all sudden death?
I'll allow it.
Let's hear it.
Here we go. Okay, folks. This tweet was so good, Dowd deleted it.
No.
This is from February 12th, 12:08. Dowd said, I saw this picture in the news today. I didn't read the story. Was this picture one of Trump's impeachment defense team presentation? The photo was from a wreck that happened in Fort Worth, and how many people died? It killed 6 people, died, and many more were seriously injured.
Oh my God.
So he deleted the tweet, but before he deleted it, this is the best part. So folks immediately replied to him. You had a congressional correspondent who said 6 people died and many more were seriously injured in this. They replied to him. Jessica O'Donnell of The Blaze replied, 6 people died in this wreck, but keep making your jokes, Matthew Dowd. Then here's what's even better. He doubles down.
No.
Says, how many people died at the U.S. Capitol?
No way.
He said, how many people died at the U.S. Capitol? And then he just deleted it all.
Wait. So this was it a contemporaneous event? Was like the car crash?
It was as this happening. He was like, you know what?
It was breaking news.
It was breaking news. And he was like, I'm going to use this photo of people dead in a wreck and say this is Trump's impeachment lawyers.
Folks, it's a walk-off. It's a walk-off. It's a walk-off.
We are the champions.
Moderate Jeff, give him the music.
That's great content.
I've never been so humiliated at King of the Hill.
I mean, it was tough. I mean, finding a challenger, I'll tell you what, Anna Navarro is up there. She's got some of the craziest takes. This was, and the thing is, I'm going to admit, this isn't like Matthew Dowd does not consistently come this nuts. Like the guy's nuts, but this was just like, I don't know what happened to him over the past week. Dude was really on top of his crazy game.
The best part about him is that like you pay Jen Rubin to be a nutso, you kind of pay Anna Navarro to be nutso. ABC pays this guy to be a political analyst. I mean,
that was his analysis. He was like, you know what? Let's find a picture of people dying in a car crash.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we've really discovered here in this game, because we are in particular focusing on, never Trump, former Republican pundits, is in a post-Trump world, there's less market, there's more market competition, there's less market share. Mm-hmm. And so the takes have to get worse and worse. The volume has to get higher and higher for these people to stay in business. So I think this is going to be a target-rich environment with lots of incredible takes for a while.
I think so. I think so. People are bringing their A game of crazy. And as long as they are, we're going to keep this game rolling.
God. Well, congratulations are in order. One thing I'm going to get a ruling. We don't have to talk about it now, but I want to get a ruling on whether or not I can saddle up Jen Rubin and bring her to the big dance next week.
That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt.
Is there a 1 week cooling? Like, what's the cooling off?
I think it's 1 week. I think it's
that's fair. That hurts.
We ride.
Gonna use my queen against me.
We ride again.
Oh man.
All right. So we got to get to this big interview. Smug, tell us a little bit about it.
Huge. Well, many minions already know Claudia Tenney. She is the first minion elected to Congress, representing New York's 22nd congressional district. She won this election. It was, to say the least, it was a hard-fought election battle. It was only just decided, like, I'll say 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, it was finally decided. She had tremendous support from the community, and she tremendously supports the community, always, not just the minion community, but in her district. We're really happy that she got elected. So without further ado, we should just get to this interview. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Congresswoman Tenney. It's great to have the first minion elected to Congress. Good to have you back in Congress. We're all so glad you won that long, hard-fought election. So thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to start by asking you, so can you tell us, it was a long election, but briefly, what the situation was with your election and why it took so long for it to be resolved?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say it was like being in purgatory, to be honest. It just every day was a twist and turn. The reason it took so long, I have a couple of real main reasons. Number one, Andrew Cuomo actually passed all these executive orders changing the rules because of the pandemic all last year. And many of these were approved by the New York State legislature as well. But they really put a huge burden on our boards of elections. The absentee ballot numbers were 5 or 7 or 8 times more than they normally handle. We had early voting for the first time in a presidential year. We had a huge turnout. We had people trying to operate in a pandemic. We also had an online database that was created by Andrew Cuomo that had no verification. So basically all you needed was a name, address, and a date of birth, which every political entity has. And those people were urged through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Every time you turned on any social media or turned on any kind of anything on the internet, there were constant ads to go to the database, don't go to the polls, sign up here. And, we don't know how many people actually use that avenue, but we think it was a lot. And the numbers of absentees were so overwhelming. And then a lot of the boards had a hard time with it. So Shenango County, which is one of the big counties, which I think it was Mark Stein, who was subbing for Rush Limbaugh, called it Shenanigans County. I don't know if you remember, they found like 12 ballots in a box and they had a bunch on the shelf. Well, what happened in Shenango County, which is by the way where our business is, and my brother lives there, but they had a malware function before. It was like it went down in October, right during early voting, and they never had any internet for the entire county until after Election Day. Wow. So that caused a lot of the problems for that county. It really wasn't their fault. It just was, a problem of having the electronic issue, and the voting machines, getting the chips from the Dominion voting machines into them were a problem. And then Oneida County failed to get their so-called motor voter registrations done. Those are the registrations of people who sign up at the Department of Motor Vehicles. their registration or application is transferred to the Board of Elections, and the Board of Elections is supposed to upload those. So many of those people, that was the last batch we did, where my opponent figured with Mark Elias, they'd gain a lot because there was a lot of young voters. And good news for the Minions, we won by 93 votes out of almost 400 cast. So a lot of the young people voted for me and voted for the president and voted Republican, which was good. And so they were all allowed to vote under the voter law, even though they were denied the access because their ballots weren't, or their applications weren't processed. So they were people who showed up on election day thinking they were registered and they weren't.
And you'd mentioned his name. This is a huge figure. And for folks who don't know about Mark Elias, he's a Democrat super lawyer who they basically parachute anywhere when they want to try and get an election to go their way, despite what may have happened. Mark Elias had to throw out everything that Democrats said about counting every vote and such in order to prevent you from taking office. What do you think that says about the way that the Democrats have been operating this cycle?
I think it's completely hypocritical. And that was one of the ways we were able to get my opponent to finally concede. So as we went through this process, they continued to want to go down. They continued to kind of drag the judge down a lot of rabbit holes. Mm-hmm. And so the judge went down the rabbit holes they went. And every time we actually gained votes. There were votes that we gained in each of the counties. And then the big kahuna, so to speak, was Oneida County, where we had those last almost 400 ballots of people that were motor voters who were denied. And we opened those ballots. I think they were pretty stunned that we won by 93, with a margin of 93 votes. I can't remember what the exact numbers were at this point. But what's interesting about it is, in earlier briefs, Mark Elias had made the claims that, we shouldn't have a full recanvass. Time is of the essence. We have to get a member sworn in by January 3rd to meet our constitutional provisions. And they were doing everything they could to try to make sure that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, after 91 days, they're claiming Dominion voting machine errors. And we really kind of went after him. He was talking about the irregularities and the new votes that needed to be counted, and we needed to hand count Dominion, and all these problems. And by the way, this judge, unlike some of the judges in the presidential race, went beyond procedural issues and went into counting ballots, which I wonder, had we done that in the presidential race, maybe we would have had a different outcome. But this judge actually went down every rabbit hole, and we ended up the winner. And what's interesting about it is, we were Mark Elias and my opponent sounded exactly like the Trump team. They sounded like Sidney Powell and her troop and Lynn Wood. Mm-hmm. We got to do all this. Mm-hmm. And I think we put enough pressure on him. In fact, I was like, how many more votes? If we go down the next, we do a hand count, for example, you would go into the Dominion voting machines, and that's where people voted on election day, where I won by 28,400 votes. So the likelihood of having those machines go his way wouldn't have. A recount probably would have favored us, just because we won election day voters. And the other thing about a Dominion voting machine is that when you go to put a ballot into the machine, mm-hmm. if there's a stray mark, or you don't, you circle something improperly, or it's not completely done, the ballot is rejected. And then this person at the Board of Elections, either they issue a new ballot, or they find a way to make your ballot corrected. It happened to me before. I did a write-in on some race a couple of years ago, and I had to get issued a new ballot because my write-in went outside the line. So these machines are very sensitive.
Yeah, they're pretty finicky.
The other thing they wanted to claim is that, so we had a lot of hand counts. So what we did is, if the machine rejected a ballot, for example, like I explained, if they rejected one of those ballots, the Board of Elections would add a manual hand count. And we were posting all these on Twitter and Facebook. You could see our manual hand counts at the end of every day, that when he was saying, the machines aren't counting the ballot, but we are. So if a ballot wasn't counted because the clear Dominion voting machine didn't count it, we added it onto the totals for both of us. So he really had no claim. And we were putting all those Twitter warnings that they were putting under the president's tweets, following him on Twitter and social media, and really kind of coming at him about how hypocritical they are. And I think that's why he finally backed down. But he's not going to say that. He's saying that, we should still go in and hand count now.
And, I think it's even more impressive, your victory, given the unprecedented spending against you. There was even, I saw an article recently, a liberal dark money group funds this fake newsroom called, I believe it's the Post Courier. They had spent $100,000 just on your race, trying to defeat you. And it's a huge victory. You overcame all of that and won that district for the GOP.
Yeah, it's been actually every race I have is I came out of nowhere really to become to do this back in 2010 when I decided to run for the assembly. I had to defeat my home county Republican chairman to get into the assembly because I was just a business person. I was like tired of these career politicians, all these people saying, "Oh, we're going to lower your taxes, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that." And I was stunned by Albany, just how dysfunctional it was, and even the Republicans were afraid to say anything to Andrew Cuomo or Elliot Spitzer or
I remember,
any of them. And they were just like, and met some good ones, but we were outnumbered, obviously, but we had the Senate. And they just, I've had so much money spent against me. I think it's about 47 million that I've had spent against me in one of the cheapest media markets. And
amazing.
The guy that I just defeated in 18 and 20, I think it's like 28 million between what he raised and what DCCC and outside groups spent. And so I've never really had a chance to really overcome all the, the negative images. I mean, when I was in the assembly, I was the first person to call for Sheldon Silver to resign. And that was in 2012. He didn't ultimately resign until 2015. But in 2012, he was actually used taxpayer money to pay off sexual harassment victims in the assembly. And he, after just passing sweeping ethics reform legislation, that we were going to have this all transparent and go through this new Jay Cope committee, which is the, Committee on Public Integrity in New York, and he bypasses it as the speaker. So I said, well, if you can't follow our rules, you should step down as speaker. And every lobbyist was like, oh my God, they're going to cut your brake lines. You're crazy. But, in the end, they did all these ads when I was in the primary saying I voted with Sheldon Silver. And I was like, I vote less with Sheldon Silver than anyone in the assembly. But it's just, it's the nature of having to fight off primaries and then being able to get through a general election, which a lot of people don't have to do.
Yeah, for folks at home who aren't as closely following New York politics, Sheldon Silver was essentially like the dark lord of New York politics, who was involved in pretty much any kind of corrupt thing you could do. And kudos to Claudia for being one of the first to get up there and push back and fight against him, because the guy had a ton of power before the feds arrested him. That took definitely a lot of courage.
Thank you. Yeah, he's an interesting character too, because he's very smart, and he ran this assembly and knew where every skeleton was buried, and had sort of a total control over all these people in the assembly. And I think like one of the things I witnessed is when he first was in trouble, and the New York Times had done a story indicating he was about to be indicted, and ultimately he was indicted. Preet Bharara, famous Preet Bharara, stay tuned. He's going to take everybody down that was corrupt in New York, the famous U.S. attorney from the Southern District. Preet Bharara, like they frog marched him, and he came back up to the chamber, and they were having these press conferences, and all these Democrats were like surrounding him. And I'm like, why are they surrounding this guy? Boy, he must have something on them. So, he goes through the process, he steps down as speaker. A lot of those things happen, and he finally was forced out. But I remember the day that he came onto the floor of the House, because remember, the speaker does not sit on the floor of the assembly. And he's out there, and all the media is swarming all over him because he's opening a desk drawer and he hadn't sat there in 20 years. And, they were all fascinated with him. And I do remember he had a sense of humor, because I remember one of the funny things he did when you realize just how much power he had over so many Democrats. So every bill that comes before the state assembly is a Democratic bill or has to be sponsored by a Democrat. And it comes to the floor, and, they automatically vote yes on everything. They don't vote no, unless very rarely. They just have a sheet in front of them that tells them, what votes they can vote yes or no. Well, Silver comes out, just a routine bill, would be called a suspension in the House, comes up on the floor, and I'm sitting there, and everybody puts their green in, and Silver puts out a no vote. So all of a sudden you see Silver with a red vote on the board, and all of a sudden the board just started flickering red, and all the Democrats, even though he was already indicted, facing trial, he still had that kind of power, and
incredible.
And everyone was turning red. All the lights turned red, and I said, look at this is unbelievable.
Amazing.
And then Democrats are looking at me and go, where are you on this bill? Like, they're sitting around me. And I was like, I think he's playing with you guys. And I think. And I said, because this is not a bill he would be against. And, after about a few, 10, 15 minutes, he went back and put the yes vote, and everything went back to green.
Amazing.
But I thought that was just an interesting, even after all that he'd been through, he still was manipulating. It was interesting.
So one question I wanted to ask you about is, so can you tell us about Nancy Pelosi told your son, who is serving in the military, that you could not have him join you on the House floor for your swearing in. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, first, what happened throughout the week when I found out that we were going to be certified, and then we got certified, and then we were trying to figure out the day that I could go into the House and actually get sworn in. And back and forth, everyone who had gotten sworn in on January 3rd were able to have one family member in the chamber and in the gallery. Remember, not on the House floor, because that we used to have more than that, but under the COVID restrictions, you have to have, you're only allowed one family member. So we were back and forth with Pelosi's team, and they just kept coming back with, no, he can't come in, he can't come in. So Representative Rodney Davis, who is our ranker on the House Administration Committee, said, well, let's bring him here. And my son actually volunteered to come. He usually doesn't. And I said, you don't have to wear a uniform. He goes, no, I'll wear it. I want to do it for you. I want to be there for you. He's a Naval Academy graduate, commissioned as a Marine in 2013. So he's active duty. He's a company commander. He runs all the COVID protocols for the Marine Corps where he is, and the Navy that are associated with them. So he does all this. He knows all of it. He runs the entire operation. He's a logistics officer. He's very sensitive to this stuff. So we just showed up, and Rodney said, well, I can't imagine if we get there, he's going to say that he can't get there. Not once in any communication was COVID ever listed as a reason. The security was listed as a reason, a security risk, a security problem. Now, understand, I walked into the chamber. It was me, Pelosi, her, the staff, and some staff behind me, and it was empty. There was not a single person in the gallery. So there was no reason for him not to come in. He was wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask. We were all, following the rules. Neither one of us, we've both been tested numerous times. Neither one of us have had COVID or been exposed to it. So that's no problem. And so he got to the door and they wouldn't let him in. And Rodney Davis went down to the speaker and said, this is really ridiculous. Why don't you let him in? And she goes, I have nothing to do with that. That's all the sergeant at arms. So she basically blamed the sergeant at arms.
Wow.
Who she hires.
Amazing. So one thing to get back to the campaign, on the campaign trail, your dog Sparky has been omnipresent. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
He's right here. I called him my cat for you. Sparky is, I got him on the campaign trail when I was running for assembly in 2012. That was another amazing campaign. I was given in redistricting the longest district created in New York State history to try to get rid of me. And I had to do a primary and all that stuff all over again in a general election. And so at that time, I was just walking down the street in Delhi, New York, and some girl was standing there with these two cute puppies. And I asked if I could have a picture with them. And she said, oh, you can buy one. They're $50 each. And I was horrified that she would be selling these adorable puppies on the street corner. So of course, I'm an animal lover. I bought one, and the lady behind me felt terrible too. So she bought one because we wanted to rescue these two dogs. And the girl did not look credible, I might add, just for the record. And he's been with me. He joined what we call our cuteness pack. So he was the fourth of four dogs that I had. And he's the only one left now. The other ones live nice long. I had two Jack Russell Terriers and a Shih Tzu. They live all smaller dogs, but they were great. And so the pack went with me everywhere. But Sparky has been everywhere with me. He drives with me everywhere. I wish I could bring him to Washington. I don't know. He's never been alone. So I wouldn't mind having another puppy for him. But
That's
he's
wonderful.
a great minion though.
That's wonderful.
He's smart. He responds to Alexa, by the way.
Amazing. So in our preview video, teasing this interview, we showed you riding a Harley. How'd you get into that? Can you tell us about that?
So glad we're having these softball questions. I love it. This isn't a CNN interview, is it? So anyway, yeah, I don't, another silly thing. I used to show horses. I showed all over the Northeast and the 8th Circuit. I was, when I was a teenager, I always wanted to get back into horses, but it's expensive and time consuming, and I just haven't had a chance to do it. And one night it was 3:00 in the morning, and I was sitting in the assembly chamber waiting for the Democrats to get a budget bill out. And I was with my friend, Steve McLaughlin, who is the Rensselaer County executive now, who's amazing. You just go look at his Twitter feed. He just annihilates Andrew Cuomo every day.
Sure.
But he's a really ferocious, great guy. But anyway, we were just sitting there and we did a bucket list, and I said, I'm going to take the motorcycle course just because it's a skill set I should have. And I signed up, and sorry, did I lose you?
No, you're right. You're fine.
All right. Yeah. So I signed up and went and took the motorcycle course, and I passed. And then my friends talked me into buying a Harley. And so I ended up really it's the closest thing to riding a horse. And I really love it. I really just ride around the beautiful countryside up in upstate New York mostly, but it's really relaxing. It doesn't cost me as much. It's dangerous, but not as dangerous or as expensive as a horse. And I can't believe I'm doing it. Like, I would never think of me as a motorcycle person, but it's really enjoyable and relaxing. And I have a ton of people that like ride with me. Every people ride all different kinds of motorcycles. A lot of Harleys, but there's BMWs and Indians and all different brands. But it's really enjoyable, and it was really fun when I was in Congress because I joined the motorcycle caucus, and I got to ride like in Rolling Thunder. I did some rides with Harley.
Amazing.
Got to ride with Rex Tillerson. He was a rider, and a lot of other people. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's really enjoying and relaxing.
I tell folks, if you think a boat's a sinkhole for cash, you should try getting a horse, because that'll really eat your money up fast.
Well, I had a boat too once point. That was a sinkhole. I had a huge, huge boat because I never had a camp. So I had this really beautiful 37-foot boat that I finally sold because I just didn't have. They redistricted me out of my district. So, I had to get I wasn't using the boat. Politics gets in the way of life.
All right. So now we're at the point I'm going to ask you the final 3 questions. These are just, kind of quick answer. Okay. First thing that gets into your mind. Number 1, if you had to have a final meal, what's your final meal that you would have on Earth?
Lobster, pumpkin pie, with lots of bread and butter and a glass of wine.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. That's a pretty good answer. And number 2, what would you be doing if you were not in politics?
What would I like to do, or
what would be what would you be doing?
Job, if I were probably practicing law and running our business somehow, working in that way.
Fantastic.
Continuing with my law practice.
And number 3, the final question: what motivates you more, the thrill of victory or fearing the agony of defeat?
The truth and trying to, neither one of those really. I mean, it's the truth and trying to do what's right and just to make sure that happens, and that it really is more of that motivation, because obviously I'm not afraid of losing. I've lost quite a bit, but I always used to live by the old Rudyard Kipling line that my dad, it was his favorite quote. So, to treat the two imposters, triumph and disaster is the two imposters just the same. So, I mean, it's really not about, I've lost, I've won. I just like to know if I'm seeking the truth, and I'd like to be able to have people come along, especially young people that care about our country and care about freedom and care about preserving what we have and understanding why it's so important that the United States leads. I mean, that's my motivation in politics. When it comes to sports, though, I am ruthless, and I have a killer instinct that I got from my dad. So I do like to win.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Congresswoman Tenney. We appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been an honor.
Really good stuff, man.
Yeah, pretty great, right?
It's so nice to hear a Minion in Congress.
Right. And I mean, so she's served in the New York Assembly. She's done a lot of good for New York State in general. And God knows with Cuomo there, we need all the help we can get. So very happy to see her there in Congress. Great interview.
Well done. She beat back the Mark Elias machine. Mark Elias being the Democratic super lawyer who, fights all of these recounts. So, I mean, what a queen.
Yeah, totally. Farewell to Brindisi.
She did it all without anybody paying any attention to the kind of shenanigans he was trying to pull, by the way.
Yeah. Huge win for us. Huge win for the Minions. Huge win for the country. But hey, that's a great This is a really content packed episode. We got the game, we got our banter, we got an interview. Good stuff.
We're just happy you took my title, you bastard.
I mean, you get Jen Rubin though, so
I know.
I doubt the crown lasts long. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Our numbers have been tremendous. We appreciate the support. And I'm going to wrap this one up. So until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.